Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thought. Now let's start the video. Dmitri liked it when they were allowed out to hunt for upstart covens, hoping to build an army. It was like a special field trip. Rasu, Caius, and Marcus would choose a few select members of the guard and send them out. They would get to prowl the streets and track down armies of newborns, and when the time was right, it was like Christmas to humans. They pounced, they slaughtered, they loved it. That was the case this time. Some nobody vampire with no talents decided he was bored. With boredom came ideas. And this one thought that creating a newborn army would give him some entertainment. The idiot didn't think his plan through well enough, because after he bit several people, the newborns turned on him and killed him. He wasn't strong enough to handle several extra strong newborns at once and perished. When the Vultury first got word of the accident, Ero sent Dmitri and Felix out right away. They arrived in England and tracked down where the newborns were feeding in the slums of London. They went in and started taking every single one of them out. Some begged, they killed them. Some fought, and they killed them. Some tried to run, and they made sure to give them an extra painful death. No one got away when Dmitri was hunting. When they were almost done, one slick newborn managed to slip away and tried to flee. Dmitri had to give the man a hand. He was good, but not good enough. Dmitri finished off the rest of the newborns, and together Felix and him took chase. The newborn was fast, and Dmitri expected that he had a talent, but he didn't care. He would kill him all the same, unless the gift was extraordinary and would impress Aro. They followed the newborn until they reached the countryside. The newborn, tired and hungry, diverted his course and went for a house. Dmitri, at first glance, thought that the place must belong to a person who breeds dogs. There were too many of one dog for them to just like the animal. The newborn had slipped inside and started tearing out the throats of the people within. Dmitri counted 4 of them. Felix stopped his friend and offered to go in alone. The tracker let him. Felix was better equipped to handle a newborn that just fed, and Dmitri didn't want to get in the way. So while Felix went to take out the last newborn, Dmitri wandered around the land. As he was approaching a rather tall tree, he caught a scent. A delicious scent. A scent that sang to him and made his mouth fill with venom even at the faintest trace of it on the wind. Dmitri's eyes went black as he searched out the source. Hearing a heartbeat, Dmitri stalked forward until he reached the tree. Looking up, he saw a pair of bright green eyes staring at him in fear. Smiling at the little boy in the tree, Dmitri jumped and grabbed the boy, twisting him in midair so his neck was exposed, and Dmitri bit down, savoring the delicious nectar that flowed into his mouth. The tracker gave a moan at the taste. He didn't think he had ever had a human taste this well. Dmitri was pulled from his feast when he landed on his feet, and Felix appeared, staring at him with wide eyes. Dmitri detached his fangs from the child's neck and licked his lips, wanting to collect every single drop of blood he managed to take from the little body in his arms. "Dmitri," Felix started. "Singer," Dmitri responded promptly. Felix's eyes showed his understanding. "The ones inside are dead," Felix stated. Dmitri said in turn. He cradled the small body in his arms, wishing the child had been bigger so that he could have feasted on more of his blood. But you don't always get what you want. The tracker was contemplating leaving the kid outside or throwing him inside with his family when he heard a moan and whimper. Felix's eyes shot wide as he looked at the little body in Dmitri's arms. The tracker, not wanting it to be real, slowly looked down. The child's eyes were closed, his skin deathly pale, letting his unique lightning bolt scar stand out. His heartbeat was faint, and when Dmitri bent down and smelled, he could smell his own venom working its way through the child's system. "Well, shit," Dmitri summed up the entire situation. Years later, Bella, Edward, Emmett, and Alice stood in front of the Volturi, watching and waiting for what the group would do. Edward was thinking that coming here to die was probably one of his more dumb ideas. Emmett was hoping for a good fight and a chance to live. Alice was trying to see into the future, hoping she would see what would happen, and Bella wasn't sure what was happening, or how she ended up underground, Italy, with a group of ancient-looking vampires. "Well, isn't this quite the situation we have found ourselves in?" Aro spoke with an amused tone from his seat. "Edward begs us to kill him, threatens us, and then is saved by a human." He trailed off. "Let Bella go," Edward demanded. "Tusk, I don't think you are in the position to be making such demands, Edward." Rosier lightly chided. Edward merely glared in response. Felix, kill the human, Uro commanded. A very tall vampire with black hair, olive skin with a chalky pallor, and broad shoulders stepped out of the assembled guards. With a flirty little smile and wink at Bella, he lunged forward. Edward cut him off, and as Alice was ready to join, Dmitri grabbed her by the chin. Emmett was also halted by two other guards that appeared, keeping him in place. Edward was quickly overwhelmed by Felix, and right before Felix was going to kill Edward, Arrow stopped him. No, Felix. There's still hope he will join us. Felix stopped, but didn't let Edward rise from the floor. Well, this is all very touching, that you want to let your little human love live. You have to understand the rules. She knows about us, so either she dies or is turned. But I am curious as to why you are so enamored with this one, Arrow explained. Just let Bella go. Edward rasped from his position on the ground. Come, human, give me your hand. Arrow commanded. Bella hesitantly walked forward, looking back at Alice. Edward and Emmett occasionally. Arrow moved his hand in what looked like an encouraging gesture, but it did not soothe or comfort the girl. When she reached the vampire leader, she placed her hand in his and waited. Arrow looked the girl in the eye and smirked. Jane, come test your gift on this human, Arrow commanded. The young blonde girl stepped forward. No! Edward yelled as he struggled to get to his feet. Jane looked at Bella and concentrated. When nothing happened, Jane's face contorted in pain and frustration. Arrow chuckled and held up a hand. That's enough, Jane. The blonde girl stepped back, looking furious. Well, isn't this interesting? Edward, dear, does your gift not work either? Arrow asked. Edward tried to stay silent, but one gesture from Arrow to Jane and Edward screamed in pain. When the screaming stopped, Arrow asked again. Finally, Edward grudgingly admitted that no, his gift did not work either. Well, maybe she should be turned after all and be allowed to join Volterra. I think her gift would be very beneficial. Bella stepped back and slowly walked back to Alice and Emmett as Edward struggled on the floor, denying Ayer's words. Bella will not be turned and damned to this life. Even if she were, we would never join you, he yelled. Bella watched as Edward argued in her favor, while Oro watched him in that amused sort of way that parents watch their children explain their daily boring adventures. Bella was considering stepping in and expressing her desire to be turned when she felt something poke her cheek. She lifted a hand to swat it away. She felt it poke her a second time, and once again she tried swatting it away, wondering if the Vultury knew they had bugs down here. She was poked a third time, and Bella decided to check what was poking her. Turning her head, she was met with the sight of a child sitting cross-legged, hovering beside her, and looking at her in a contemplative state. Bella screamed. All eyes snapped over to her when a single groan broke through the silence. Harry, I told you to stay in our room, Dmitri said from where he was still holding Alice in place. The child Harry turned towards the other vampire and gave an impish smile. I was going to, but then I was curious. I was hiding, but I noticed that this girl's face never changes, like ever. Not when she's scared or surprised. Even screaming, it stayed in that bored-looking state. An immortal child? Alice said softly. I can't believe this, Edward raged. You will kill Bella because of law, but is it not your own law that states one can never create an immortal child? That creator and child will be killed immediately. Yet here you have one. Rosier looked at Edward before addressing Harry. Harry, love, why don't you return to Dmitri now? Harry giggled as he uncurled his body, placing one cold hand on Bella's shoulder. He pushed himself away and floated across the room to Dmitri. Dmitri let go of Alice and plucked Harry out of the air. Once he had him, Dmitri said, hover off, and Harry went limp in his arms. Dmitri lowered Harry to the floor, and once he was free, the child scampered behind Dimitri's legs, shyly peeking his face out afterwards. Harry is a very special child, Era started. When Dmitri accidentally turned him, I had prepared myself to kill the best tracker in the world. However, upon meeting the little one, we found him to possess amazing self-control and maturity. After numerous tests, we deemed him to be of no threat and allowed Harry and Dmitri to live. Plus, the little guy is just too adorable to kill. The Cullens stared at Arrow in shock. The image of the terrifying vampire leader was slowly being shattered. Edward seemed to recover first, as it was usually the case when Bella was involved. If you can make an exception for that child, then why can't you let Bella live without being turned? "'Cause Bella's not Harry," Arius stated simply, his smile finally disappearing. Eru and Edward entered a heated staring contest. "Hover on," a voice and tone breaking the silence that descended. Edward and Alice turned incredulous eyes to their brother. Emmett grinned sheepishly at them. "I just wanted to see if it would work," he explained. A quiet giggle came from behind Dmitri as a head of messy black hair popped out. Harry gave Emmett a shy smile and waved before ducking back behind Dmitri. "I'm sorry, but it doesn't work like that." Caius spoke up startlingly. "The Cullens, only Dmitri has the ability to command Harry's power." "Oh," Emmett pouted a little. "Yes, our little Harry is so special. He can float, fly, and switch personalities," Ro bragged. "Switch personalities?" Alice asked. "Yes, Harry is a shy little vamp on ground, but in the air he is a mischievous little prankster." The Cullens tried to look at Harry, but the little vampire was safely hidden behind Dmitri. Eru watched with amused eyes as Harry avoided the Cullens' gaze, before Marcus brought him back to the task at hand, with a few whispered words. "Of course, Marcus, of course. Now Bella must die," Eru announced. "No," Edward screamed. "Wait," Alice called. "Bella will be turned. I saw it." The three Vultury leaders looked at the smallest Cullen. "Have you? Will you let me see?" Eru asked, but his tone told them it wasn't a question, but a demand. Alice nodded her head and walked towards Eru. Eru held her hand and closed his eyes as Alice's vision flashed across his mind. Opening his eyes, he smiled. "Well, it seems she will be turned. I guess there's no reason to kill her." Felix let Edward up. After that, the Cullens were allowed to leave. Once they were gone, Harry and Dmitri approached Eru. "Rose." "Yes, Dmitri." He actually looked at his best tracker. "Harry is bored and is wondering if you would let us go to Forks and investigate this Bella Swan further. He thinks Edward might try to renege on his deal and not turn her." Dmitri explained. Rosier took a moment to think it over before a cruel smile appeared on his face. "I think that is a lovely idea. Harry, love, make sure to cause lots of havoc for the Cullen family while you're there." The plane was just landing when Alice was hit with a vision. It didn't show much, but what she did understand was that Charlie and Bella would be getting house guests. Their faces were blurry and she didn't see anything past them arriving. But Edward being Edward read her mind and started questioning Bella if she knew if anyone was coming to visit. Bella had shaken her head in confusion and the subject was dropped. They wouldn't get any further. Thinking it over, Alice decided it would be best to wait and not mention this to the rest of her family. After all, it wasn't like the vision showed her that anything bad was going to happen. It could just be Bella's mother and her husband dropping by. Walking through the gate, Alice forgot all about her vision when she saw Jasper waiting for her. She rushed over to her mate and threw herself at him. They were all together again. Charlie Swan had just sat down, removed his shoes, and cracked a beer when someone knocked on the door. With a heavy sigh, big heave, and some muttering, Charlie got up from his recliner and walked to the door. Opening, he was surprised to see a young man, probably late 20s, black hair, dark brown eyes, olive skin but oddly pale and smartly dressed, standing there. "How can I help you?" Charlie asked. "Are you Charlie Swan?" the man asked. Charlie couldn't place his accent. He was thinking Greek, maybe Italian, could be British or French for all Charlie knew. "Yes, I am," Charlie answered simply. The young man gave him a relieved smile before holding out his hand. "Hello, Mr. Swan. I am Dmitri Robbins, and this is Harry Robbins." Charlie shook the man's hand and hoped he wasn't crazy because he could only see one person on his porch. Apparently, his thoughts showed on his face because Dmitri gave a deep chuckle. "Harry, come, introduce yourself," Dmitri said, looking down and behind him. Charlie followed his gaze and saw a little boy appear behind Dmitri. "Hello, sir," a small, soft voice spoke. Charlie studied the kid and saw that he also had black hair, accent, usually pale complexion, and those dark brown eyes. They could be father and son if you looked hard enough, though Dmitri looked too young to be having children. Charlie wouldn't judge. He knew that young teenagers liked to experiment, and Dmitri's experiment may have ended in a surprise. He could respect the young man because he seemed to be willing to care for his child. "We're sorry to show up unannounced like this, Mr. Swan, but recently our mother passed and we were looking for other family members. We searched hard and we finally came upon your name. And we just got too excited and seemed to have shown up here without proper introduction or contact first." Dmitri rambled out quickly in a nervous tone, leaving Charlie's thoughts swirling. "Excuse me?" Oh, I'm sorry. My mouth has seemed to run away with me again. Dmitri apologized. Our mother, he gestured towards himself, and Harry passed away 2 weeks ago. Our father had already walked out on us just after Harry was born, and well, I can try to support him, but I wasn't sure if I wanted him to live paycheck to paycheck with me. Charlie nodded his head. He could agree that such a lifestyle would be hard on anyone. Never mind a person also trying to support a child. Well, we looked into our family's past, and we realized that our mother's father was the son to the youngest boy your grandmother gave birth to, and well, Dmitri trailed off. Charlie was going to work the math out in his head, but he figured that if they were claiming to be family, the least he could do was invite them in. Come on in, you two. We can talk more inside. Thank you, Mr. Swan. Dmitri said as he turned and took Harry's hand and led him inside. Once they were seated, Charlie started up the conversation again. So my grandmother's youngest son's son's daughter was your mother, Charlie asked for clarification. Yes, Dmitri answered simply as he pulled a few sheets of paper from the inside pocket of his coat and passed them over, just in case you didn't believe us. Charlie took the paper and opened them to see a family tree. Following the lines of one, he saw his name and Bella's, and few spaces over on another branch was Dmitri and Harry Robbins. So are you looking for money? Charlie asked, unsure why these two would chase such an elusive family connection. Nothing like that, Mr. Swan. Call me Charlie, Charlie cut in. It's just I was looking for someone who would be kind enough to look after Harry for a few weeks. Just until I find a higher-paying job and can take him back full-time without worry. I will even pay you back for any expenses when I come to get Harry again. Dmitri quickly offered at the end. What is your plan for a job and school? You are still in school, aren't you? Charlie asked. He certainly looked young enough to be... Well, I just finished my university degree last semester, and I was looking around for a job while working at a gas station in Michigan. But with Harry now, I plan to keep working at the gas station and send out various resumes to look for a new job. I will point out that I am willing to move for work, and hopefully if someone hires me, I can use my savings to find a nice apartment for Harry and I in a new city. Dmitri explained. Charlie looked over at the little boy that this conversation was revolving around. Harry was playing with the hem of Dimitri's coat, closely cuddled into his side. How old are you, Harry? Harry's head snapped up at the question. 9, sir. Charlie frowned. 9 was much too young for a child to be moved around constantly. They needed stability and a nice home. Looking at Dmitri, Charlie got the feeling that he was a nice guy, and the way he looked at Harry, you could tell he greatly cared for the child. Charlie made up his mind over the situation. He was a good man and a family man, no matter what anyone else would say. Dmitri, I could help you find a job here in Forks, and I have a spare bedroom if you and Harry don't mind sharing. Charlie offered. Dmitri looked at him with wide eyes, while Harry mirrored his expression. Mr. Swan, you don't need to do that. Just watching Harry is fine. I can go back to Michigan. Nope, I want to do this. Your family and family should always look after one another. Harry is greatly attached to you, and it would probably tear him up to see you go. Plus, you also need stability, and while you live and work here in Forks, I can help you out. All I ask is that you respect the rules of this house, respect the people of Forks, and work hard. Dmitri nodded his head before he addressed Harry. Would you like that, Harry, if the two of us moved to Forks? Harry nodded slowly before giving Charlie a shy smile. Thank you, sir. None of that, sir, business. Just call me Charlie. Charlie felt something warm inside of him at the sight of Harry's smile. It was the same feeling he used to get when Bella visited him. Comparing then and now didn't make Charlie feel old. In fact, he felt more youthful in the presence of these two. Now, do you two have luggage or anything to bring in before I show you your room? Charlie asked as he stood. Well, we have a few bags in the car, Dmitri answered. Well, let's go get you moved in. Then we can talk about you quitting your job in Michigan, and when you will go and get the rest of your stuff, Charlie stated as he put on his shoes. He would need to call Bella and tell her about their house guests, but first he needed to know where his wayward daughter was and when she was getting back. Looking at Dmitri and Harry, and how polite both were, he hoped their politeness and Dimitri's responsible personality would rub off on his daughter. Bella and Edward were driving up to her house when Edward stiffened and stopped the car. His nostrils flared as he took in the scent of other vampires around Bella's house. The scent was familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. His thoughts jumped to Victoria, but if it were her, then Alice would have seen. What's wrong, Edward? Bella asked. I smell vampires. Edward told her simply. Stay in the car. I'm going to go check it out. Bella nodded. Edward exited the car and ran to Bella's front door. He could tell that the vampires were inside with Charlie. He couldn't hear their thoughts. It came in muddy. Running to the side of the house, Edward scaled the tree outside of Bella's window and stepped inside her room. Looking around, the room looked the same as he had left it all those months ago. Bella never seemed to change. Edward walked towards the door and opened it, peeking out. The hallway was clear, so Edward stepped into, hoping to get a hint as to why 2 vampires were here. He made it to the top of the stairs when he heard someone speak. Charlie, is someone else here? I thought I heard someone walking upstairs. Edward froze. He knew that voice, mentally cursing. Edward ran back into Bella's room and outside. He got back to his car and started the engine. Edward, did you find anything? Bella asked as she placed a warm hand on his forearm. Dmitri from the Vultury is inside your house. Edward hissed as he slammed the car into reverse and took off. Dmitri? What about Charlie? Bella asked, sending fear-filled eyes towards the direction of her house. He seemed fine. It sounded like he was talking to them. Edward switched gears and spun the car around, pushing on the gas to speed away. Where are we going now? My house. I need to tell the others. Edward explained, mentally going over everything he knew about Dmitri and trying to find a reason he would be in Forks. Once they got back to the Cullens, Edward ran around the car and let Bella out. Before they reached the door, it swung open to see a worried Esme waiting for them. Edward, dear, what's wrong? Jasper could feel your anxiety as soon as you hit the driveway. Dmitri from the Vultury is in Forks. More specifically, he's in Bella's house, Edward explained. He heard several exclamations of surprise race through his family's minds. Are you sure? Carlisle asked. Positive. I recognized his voice. But Alice should have seen if someone from Volterra was going to show up. Esme frowned. Alice looked upset, but at the reminder of seeing it, clicked. Oh, well, what? Rosie asked. I got a vision just as we landed, that Bella would get visitors. I couldn't see their faces, though, but Charlie looked happy to see them. Charlie and 2 others were sitting in her kitchen talking and laughing about something, so I didn't think much of it. The smallest Cullen explained, Well, you should have seen the Volturi sitting there, probably plotting on how to kill Bella. Edward snapped. Edward, don't take your anger out on Alice. Esme reprimanded him. Edward sent an apologetic look to Alice, and she smiled in turn. It's fine, Esme, but what we need to do is find out why Dmitri is here, how to get rid of him, and how to keep Bella safe, Alice said. I say we just let him kill the human, Rosalie piped up. Rosier! Carlisle scolded this time. What Dmitri kills Bella? He leaves, and we're all happy and safe. Rosalie explained without remorse. Edward growled at his adopted sister. Stop it, you two! We won't give Bella up to be killed, Carlisle announced. Plus, I don't think Dmitri is here to kill Bella. What? The entire coven said at the same time. Carlisle, you told us yourself that the Volturi was a bunch of ruthless killing vampires with elitist issues. Jasper spoke up. They do kill a lot, but it's mainly to feed. Also, they are the only reason we have a vampire government. I can admit that without them, then there would be a serious lack of humans, or vampires would have been hunted down and extinct. A long time ago, the rules they set were beneficial to the vampire community. They are ruthless because if they show mercy, then some other coven may try to use that and take over. While they may be ruthless, they are honorable in their own way. If they said they wouldn't kill Bella, then they won't unless they have a just cause. If Dmitri is here, then he was probably sent to keep tabs on the situation, but isn't a real threat, Carlisle explained. Do you think we could talk Dmitri into eating Bella? Rosie curiously asked. Rosalie, the Cullen coven yelled. Bella will not be eaten, Carlisle commanded. I think we should go over to Bella's and talk to Dmitri. We can personally ask why he is here, and if he plans to stay, we need to inform him about the treaty. Will we all go? Alice asked. No, I think Edward, and I should be enough. Carlisle stated. Honey, are you sure? Alice said there are 2 people, and I remember you telling me that Dmitri and Felix are close. In case there's trouble, maybe we should all go. Esme spoke up. You're right. Carlisle trailed off, going deep in thought. It's probably Harry, Emmett spoke up for the first time. The sudden boom of his voice had everyone staring at him. Well, Aro said Dmitri is the only one who can control Harry's powers. And I don't think Dmitri would leave the little guy in Volterra to cause havoc, Emmett explained. That sounded smart. Alice piped up. Emmett sent a small glare at her. I am not dumb like you all think. Plus, how can you guys not remember that kid? He was floating all around Bella and giggling. I know you're smart, love, Rosalie soothed. You are much smarter than Alice and Edward. Emmett seemed slightly mollified by Rosalie's words, but still a little offended. Kid? Carlisle asked. You won't believe this, Carlisle. Edward perked up. The Vultury turned a child and kept it. They broke their own law. Carlisle frowned again. That doesn't sound like a row. Caius or Marcus. The kid is awesome, though. He floats. Like actually floats. Emmett seemed back to his cheerful self. Even with a gift, I don't think they would keep him alive. Children have no control, and when they throw a temper tantrum, they can slaughter hundreds. You just have to meet the kid to understand, Emmett argued. Carlisle seemed to think over Emmett's words. True. Maybe we should go meet him now. I think we should all go, Esme stated. Yes, I agree, Carlisle conceded. The Cullens plus Bella trekked out to the garage and loaded into 2 cars. They pulled out and started on their way to Bella's house. Charlie was in the kitchen talking with Billy Black about canceling their plans for the night, while Harry and Dmitri sat in the living room. Demetri, how long until the Cullens get here? Harry asked quietly, so only his partner could hear, while stopping himself from rubbing at his contacts. Soon I can sense them getting closer. Dmitri answered, idly, playing with Harry's wild hair. Once Edward heard me, he ran straight back to his family to warn them. Do you think Aero was telling the truth when he said that Edward sits outside the human's window watching her sleep? Probably, Dmitri answered simply. When the head beneath his fingers started rising, the tracker pushed it down and said hover off without thought. They sat in silence for a few more minutes, Dmitri playing with hair, Harry thinking, and Charlie laughing at some joke or story. Billy Black told, They're here. All of them, Dmitri whispered. A moment later, the door was heard opening. Charlie quickly ended his call and strode into the living room, giving Dmitri a look before continuing to the front hallway. Charlie, I'm home, Bella called. Bella, Charlie said happily. And the Cullens? Doctor, I thought you and your family moved away. Charlie was heard saying, Well, you know, young love, Edward just couldn't stop complaining about missing Bella and convinced us to move back. Carlisle answered. Yes, Edward. The 2 Vultury members smiled at the clear dislike that sounded through Charlie's voice. Well, come in, everyone. Bella, I'm glad you're finally home. There's some people I would like you to meet. Harry crawled onto Dimitri's lap as the Cullens shuffled into the living room. Seats were quickly filled after some chairs were brought in from the kitchen. Bella, I would like you to meet some cousins of yours. This is Dmitri Robbins and his little brother, Harry, Charlie announced. Harry gave a small wave, while Dmitri grinned and offered a pleasure to meet you. Charlie, are you sure they're related to us? Bella asked bluntly, ignoring the 2. Charlie gave his daughter a stern look. Bella, that is not very polite. Yes, I'm sure, and they will be staying with us for a while, so you should be more hospitable to them. Well, this is a nice little reunion. I think some tea would be nice. Chief Swan, would you mind if I went to prepare some? Esme asked. Charlie sat up. Don't worry yourself, Mrs. Cullen. I will go make some. And just call me Charlie. That would be lovely. And I keep telling you to call me Esme. The motherly vamp smiled at the officer. Charlie went to the kitchen with a small smile, leaving the rest. Why are you here? Edward quickly hissed, quiet enough so Charlie wouldn't hear, but loud enough for Bella. Dmitri sat back on the couch in an arrogant posture, pulling Harry with him, and smirked. Just connecting with long-lost family, of course. Dmitri drawled in a deep tone, sending a shiver down the female's spines. Rosier said you wouldn't kill Bella, Edward argued. We won't. No need to worry about your little human, mind reader. Dmitri continued to smirk, staring straight into Edward's eyes. We won't hurt her. Harry spoke softly, startling everyone. Carlisle stared at Harry intently. How old were you when you were turned? 9, sir, Harry stated simply. Why did you 2 come here? Carlisle asked, not stopping his observation of Harry, looking for anything that would tell him more about the child. So far, all he learned was that he was polite. Rosier wanted us to check on your health, sir. Carlisle didn't believe the little vampire and turned towards Jasper and Edward. Dmitri feels smug and Harry seems nervous in front of us. I don't think he's lying. Maybe just not telling the whole truth, Jasper said. I can't hear them. Their thoughts are muffled somehow, Edward added. Carlisle frowned. This wasn't ideal. Tea's ready, Charlie called as he walked back into the room. He was carrying a tray with various coffee cups, a box of orange Picot, and the electric kettle. Who would like some? I think Edward said he wanted some when you left, sir, Harry said. Dmitri clamped a hand on the child vampire's shoulder. Charlie gave Edward a strange look. Well, ladies first, Mrs. Cullen. Thank you, Charlie. Esme smiled at the man, ignoring the look he had just sent at her son. Charlie started pouring tea and awkwardly stirring it about before handing the cup to each of the females in the room. Esme and Alice accepted their gracefully. Bella just blinked at her cup, and Rosie sniffed before giving a small thank you. A sniffle brought all eyes in the room to Harry. Harry was slightly rubbing his nose and looking down, his bangs covering his eyes. What's wrong, Harry? Charlie asked with concern. The boy was in Dimitri's lap, and Dmitri was using one hand to hold Harry's shoulder, his thumb rubbing small circles. Nothing, sir, Harry said softly before he mumbled something. The vampires heard gibberish. Are you sure, sport? Dmitri looked up with sad eyes, slowly bringing Harry to his chest to comfort him. He said that Edward is looking at him meanly and it scares him. Dmitri supported his statement by sending his own glare at Edward. Charlie turned a stern look to Edward. Well, it's getting late, Doctor, and I'm sure you would like to take your family home for a nice dinner. Charlie said, trying to politely dismiss that Cullen family. Of course. Actually, we were wondering if it would be all right to have Bella stay over for a few days. The girls just got back together, and I'm sure there's lots to catch up on. Carlisle asked politely, itching to question the Vultury members more, but keeping his desire at bay. Charlie frowned. I'm sorry, Doctor, but Bella is grounded. Charlie, Bella finally spoke to object. No bells, you took off like that. You never called, you didn't ask permission, and frankly, I think that just shows how young and irresponsible you are. I know your friends are back, but actions have consequences. Charlie said firmly, Chief Swan may be an exception just this once. Carlisle tried to haggle. Mummy never had exceptions, she said, letting one off punishment was teaching them bad habits. Harry said softly. Charlie sent a warm smile his way. See, Doctor, I wouldn't want to reinforce bad habits. Maybe once Bella is ungrounded, she can go visit, but until then she isn't leaving this house unless it's for work or school. Charlie started ushering the Cullen family to the door, while Bella argued. Edward turned around and glared at Harry, but the little vampire sent him a wicked-looking smirk. The child vampire stuck his tongue out at the mind reader before letting out a quiet giggle. Dmitri merely smirked that irritating smirk once more before leaning forward and saying, hover off. Edward wasn't happy. Charlie stumbled down the stairs at night, thinking about his midnight snack. He was trying to decide between a piece of toast with peanut butter or cookies. It was a tough choice. On one hand, peanut butter was healthier, but it was sticky and he would need to brush his teeth again to make sure none was left in his mouth or mustache. But on the other hand, cookies were less messy and tasty, especially the ones that little Harry made earlier. The little boy may be shy and quiet, but he could make one mean double chocolate chunk cookie. As he walked into the kitchen, he nearly stumbled over a small foot hidden under the island. Instantly on alert, Charlie grabbed the nearest knife in the block and held it out. He bent down and was ready to yell for Bella or one of the boys to call the station, when he saw messy black hair and large dark eyes staring at him. Charlie let out a sigh of relief when he saw Harry. Hey, sport, what are you doing under there? Charlie asked. He looked at the child and saw that he was wearing the shirt Dmitri wore earlier as a nightshirt. He also had his arms wrapped around him and was facing towards the back door. I came down for milk and saw someone outside. I got Dmitri and he went out to see if it was safe. Harry whispered. The alert attitude Charlie had just dropped was instantly back. If Harry saw someone outside, then Charlie believed him. Harry wasn't the type of child that would lie. Charlie knew that. Even if he only knew the two brothers for a day. I'll go check too, sport. Charlie reassured the hiding child. Charlie straightened his back, kept his knife close at hand, and quietly made his way to the door. He opened it a crack and peeked outside, before stepping out fully. Not bothering to close the door completely in case he needed to run in quickly to phone the station, Charlie stepped out on the porch and looked around. Let go of me. A snarl came from the side of the house. Charlie dashed to the corner and looked around to see Dmitri pinning someone to the trunk of the tree. What's going on here? Charlie called. Two faces whipped to face him, and Charlie was a little shocked to see the pale face of Edward Cullen. When Harry saw someone, I came to look and found this pervert sitting in a tree outside your daughter's window, Dmitri quickly explained. Charlie's shocked expression quickly morphed into one of fury. You were spying on my daughter from her window in the middle of the night. Charlie bellowed. His voice seemed to cause the neighbors to wake as a light next door flickered on. His neighbor, Dave, stuck his head out. Charlie, what's going on? You nearly woke the entire street. The other man called. Sorry, Dave, but could you do me a favor and call the station? I need someone arrested. Sure, Charlie. The other man called before his head disappeared inside. Another window opened, and this time Bella was the one looking around for the commotion. What's happening, Charlie? Bella asked in a daze. Nothing, dear. Just go back to sleep. Charlie called up. Bella didn't seem to want to listen as she opened her eyes further and spotted Edward and Dmitri. Dmitri, what are you doing to Edward? She screeched. Don't be upset with Dmitri, dear. He caught Edward spying on you. I think you should be thanking him, Charlie stated. Edward wasn't spying on me. He was watching over me like he used to do. Bella blurted out. Charlie froze. Bella, dear, did you just say that Edward has done this before and you knew about it? Charlie's voice was stone cold as he processed his daughter's words. Oh, they would be having a talk. Bella stumbled. Charlie? Demi, are you okay? A small voice called. Charlie turned to see Harry's head look around the corner. His anger faded a little at the sight of the scared child. We're fine, love, Dmitri called. Okay, Harry said before he stepped out fully from the corner. Charlie frowned a little at the sight of Harry's bare feet. He would be feeling the cold soon. Sirens in the distance broke the chief from his thoughts. A patrol car pulled up, and a uniformed officer stepped out. Charlie walked over and greeted the man before instructing him to arrest Edward. The officer was hesitant at first to arrest the good doctor's son, but on the command of Charlie, he complied. Charlie then stepped into the house quickly for appropriate attire to go to the station inn and fill out a report. Not to mention, he would need to call the Cullens and inform them of their son's less than morally acceptable hobby. After Charlie, Edward, and the patrol car were off, Dmitri and Harry went back inside and were greeted by an angry Bella. What did you do that for? She demanded. Well, Bella dear, I don't know about you, but if I found a strange man outside Harry's window, I would have them arrested. Dmitri said with a fake appalled tone, Bella, don't you have school in the morning? You shouldn't miss any more school. Harry chided from beside Dmitri. Bella glared at both as she opened and closed her mouth several times. Finally giving up, the human girl stomped her foot and stormed off to her room, leaving one chuckling and one giggling vampire behind. When Charlie got home, the first thing he did was check on the children. He checked on Bella to see his daughter sleeping fitfully. He even checked the tree outside her room to make sure no other perverts were hanging about. Next, he checked the brothers and looked inside to see Dmitri lying on his back, one arm behind his head and the other wrapped around a lump under the blankets, which he guessed was Harry. Seeing the size of his guest bedroom, he noted that it was smaller than Bella's room. He wondered if it would be more of a hassle to have them trade rooms so the brothers had more room, or to just cut down the tree to prevent any more lurkers. He would think on it in the morning. Charlie gave a big yawn as he closed the brothers' door and walked to his own room. He was happy that all the members of his family were safe once more. As the door closed, Harry let out a small giggle. Demi, what are we going to do to her tomorrow? He asked, so low, only a vampire could hear. Tomorrow we will go to Michigan to hunt and come back with a few things that should get under her skin, Demetri promised. With that, Harry let out another giggle and went back to plotting more ways to bug the human. As Carlisle and Esme arrived home from the police station, their children surrounded them. What happened? Rosie asked. Edward was arrested after being caught peeping on Bella. Charlie has him booked for the night, but tomorrow we should be allowed to go and post bail. You know how slow paperwork is? Carlisle explained. I can't believe he was caught, Alice whispered in disbelief. Dmitri probably caught him off guard, Jasper responded. I'm not surprised, Emmett stated, turning all the Cullens' attention on him. Seeing the glare from his wife, Emmett quickly defended himself. Well, it's a little creepy how he sits outside her window all night, every night, and with two Vultury staying there, you don't honestly think they would let that go. Rosalie stared at him before shrugging her shoulders. Emmett has a point. It was very creepy on Edward's part, and he was bound to be punished for it sometime. Yeah, Rosie is on my side, Emmett grinned as he wrapped an arm around his wife's waist and pulled her close. Still, that doesn't give the Vultury the right to get Edward arrested, Alice pointed out. Emmett just shrugged his shoulders this time. Then he shouldn't have done it knowing they were there. Alice opened her mouth to argue again, but Carlisle stepped in. Now, you two. Emmett has a point that no one is to blame except Edward. We will have him home tomorrow and advise him against going to Bella at night in the future. There's nothing more we can do, and that settled the issue. Just as a side note, I don't think Chief Swan is going to let Edward see Bella day or night now, Emmett threw out. Emmett watched as his statement settled over the family. Carlisle, Esme, and Alice seemed upset. Jasper seemed slightly relieved, and Rosie... At his words, Rosie Oliad perked up considerably. No human, no problem, she declared, and then left the room, humming to herself. As she reached the top of the stairs, she paused. Emmett, love, I think for the rest of the night we should spend it privately, Rosalie said in a seductive tone. It was Emmett's turn to perk up. Right, night all, he called, as he raced up to his wife. It was a good night, Edward's problem aside. When Edward was let out of jail with a summons for later, he was spitting mad and ready to fight Dmitri and Harry. When he called up Bella, he was informed that the pair had left early that morning to Michigan. Edward mentally translated that into them going hunting for the next few days. Edward spent the rest of the day brooding. He wouldn't admit that he was slightly pouting that his fight for pride is taken from him. He had tried to go visit Bella after school, but he found that Billy Black was over on security detail. Bella had been herded into the living room to complete her homework, and when Edward tried calling, he found that the elder was screening all calls. Edward mentally compared the elder so a big, old bulldog guarding its favorite bone. Sure, he could probably get around the dog and steal the bone, but there was the chance that he could also get seriously injured, literally or figuratively. Edward and Bella were both miserable that they were forbidden from seeing each other. Yes, they had school, but Charlie had seemed to get the teachers in on helping him keep that pervert away from his daughter. The rest of the student body were now wary of Edward for his perverse pleasures and slightly scared of Bella for clear lack of mental facilities, since she kept trying to return to Edward's side. Charlie was feeling like a proud father, though. He was really getting the hang of this father thing. Edward growled as he found himself in a corner. He couldn't see Bella at school. Couldn't see her at her own house. Charlie had taken away her truck, and none of her old friends were willing to hang out with her as an excuse to let them meet. It was frustrating, and all Edward wanted to do was sink his fangs into Dmitri and Harry and tear them apart, but he couldn't even do that since the two were still gone. Edward wanted to kick himself for ever going to the Vultury. Edward was stalking out of the English classroom when he noticed a book on the floor. Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Looking at the famous tragedy, Edward had an idea. Romeo and Juliet had been forbidden from seeing each other as well, but they had overcome that and got together. Yes, it was not the most ideal situation, and it ended with both them dead, but the fact remained that there was a few times they got together and it was great. They got married, they spent that one night together, and it was all because they had help. Edward just needed his own nurse and friar. As Edward went through a mental list of people that would fit his criteria for nurse and friar, he flipped to the end and read Romeo's last words to Juliet. Thus, with a kiss, I die. Edward wouldn't let Bella die. He would use all the advantages that being a vampire gave him, and he would be with Bella, and they would be happy and alive. With his resolve earning, Edward set out to talk with Alice. A few days later, when Dmitri and Harry came back, Charlie had informed everyone that the brothers and Bella would switch around rooms. Charlie had jokingly said that with Dmitri there, no one would dare try to spy on Harry. Dmitri had laughed and said that he would start booby-trapping the tree to prevent any perverts from scaling it. Charlie had approved, and the two joked some more about possible traps, where they could buy the supplies, and if trapping the back porch was worth it. When they finished, Dmitri and Harry went upstairs to pack up what they had there before they brought in a few boxes from Dimitri's old Honda out front. Bella was going to argue, but Charlie put his foot down. He was adamant about the move and said that if Bella felt that strongly, then she could pay for the tree to be cut down. With a heavy sigh, the human girl walked upstairs and started packing, cursing Italian vampires under her breath the whole time. Later, Bella was sitting in the living room with Charlie when Harry and Dmitri came down. Charlie looked up from the paper and smiled at the pair, while Bella tried to ignore them as she worked on her homework. "What are you two up to?" Charlie asked. Well, Harry was wondering if it was all right to watch a DVD. It was one of our mother's favorite shows from when she was younger, and Harry has been missing her terribly today, Dmitri said. Bella was frustrated that she couldn't pick out the false depression in his voice, so she could point it out to Charlie. He sounded so convincing. Sure, buddy. Go pop it in. What's it called? Charlie asked, putting down his paper. Vampire High, sir, Harry answered in his soft voice. Our mother thought the show was brilliant. It's about a group of vampires living under a boarding school. There's forbidden love between a human and vampire, fighting, enemies, friendship, and learning. Our mother used to make me watch it with her. So please ignore me with a start saying the lines with the actors. Dmitri said as he cleared his throat in an embarrassed gesture. Bella turned towards the older vampire with wide eyes. Was he trying to give away his own secret to her father? Not my cup of tea, but I'm willing to watch something once. Charlie gave a deep chuckle, readjusting himself so he was more comfortable. Harry popped the DVD and scampered back to Dmitri. The older vampire picked Harry up and placed the smaller vampire beside him before picking up the remote. What episode are we on, love? Dmitri asked the young vamp cuddled to his side. 12. Yes! Bella, there's a character with the same name as you in this episode. Dmitri pressed the button to start the episode. Charlie focused on the TV, while Bella sent a small glare towards the Vultury member. One of the vampires has a pet rat named Bella. Little thing goes missing, though, theory being it was eaten by another vampire student, but no worries, she's found in the end. Dmitri sent her a wicked smirk that was missed by Charlie. Bella was getting ready to say something, but Harry turned to her, held up a single finger to his lips, and shushed her. Dmitri had a teasing smile on his face as he turned to the TV, effectively ending any protest. Bella might have had to his words with Bella, you should finish your homework. We wouldn't want your marks to drop and you miss out on university. Charlie looked at his daughter from the corner of his eye. That's true, honey. You missed too much school to be slacking now. Harry looked at the human girl and smiled while he whispered low enough, so Charlie wouldn't hear Vamps 3, Human 0. Bella hated them. Charlie sat in his usual comfortable office chair at the station and stared at the phone. He just put down Harry had called him at work and asked for permission to go to the Forks High School because Bella had forgotten the lunch he made for her. Charlie didn't have the heart to tell the little guy that Bella probably forgot the specially made brown lunch sack on purpose, and with a heavy sigh had given his consent, only after he had made sure Dmitri was going with him and that he bundled up properly against the cold drizzle falling outside. Everything okay, Chief? Rob, the other officer on office duty, asked. Yeah, just my nephew of sorts calling about Isabella, Charlie responded. Has that Cullen boy been back snooping around your house? Rob asked as he put down his plain donut in interest. There wasn't a lot of interesting things that happened in a small town, and the residents seemed to gravitate to anything that was newsworthy. Not that I know of. I don't blame the good doctor. He's a great and caring man. His wife also has a large heart to adopt so many. But sometimes, one just slips through your fingers and you don't notice when they develop bad hobbies. Hopefully the good doctor and his wife are helping the lad, Charlie stated. Yeah, gotta feel pity for Dr. Cullen. He just gets back in town and is suddenly in the middle of a scandal. Yeah, Charlie trailed off in contemplation. Do you think I was a bit hard of Bella? I mean, grounding her for so long and taking away her privileges. Charlie knew that Rodhia had a teenage daughter himself, just a year or two younger than Bella. Parents will always wonder if they have been too hard on their child, but you know you will have gone too far if you leave a bruise, Rob stated. Bruise? I have never hit my daughter and never planned to. Grounding is fine, extra chores, and even once I made her write me an essay about why her attitude needed work, but I have never hurt her. Abuse doesn't solve anything, it just makes more problems, Rob explained. I agree. I never touched Bella in such a way, and I hope I never will. Still, I wish she was more like Dmitri. Charlie said, the young man is smart, caring, and helpful. He has never used a tone I didn't like. He adores Harry, and is very responsible. Just yesterday, I came home and he had gone grocery shopping. I tried paying him back the money, but he refused. So it's not weird at all having two unknown family members show up. At first, I lived a very nice bachelor life, but Bella came and I adjusted. She was rarely home, always out with Edward or Alice, or she would stay up in her room all quiet like. But now, Dmitri and Harry have added a new life to the house. I look forward to going home and seeing what they made for dinner, or watching as Dmitri chases Harry around the house. Children are gifts. That they are. But that Dmitri fellow must have some bad habits, Rob trailed off, leaving room for Charlie to spill some gossip he could tell his wife later. Ah, Charlie laughed. He isn't all perfect. Harry cooks because Dmitri burns all the food. I find his socks everywhere, and he refuses to buy Harry pajamas stating that his shirt is fine. He blasts classical music all day and doesn't understand football. What young male doesn't get football? Charlie asked, completely baffled. Rogue chuckled. I hear in some states such boys do exist. Of course, that might just be a myth like the Loch Ness Monster. And the little one? Harry is strange. Not like any kid I know. He's quiet, homeschooled apparently, but sometimes he gets this look. It's like he's plotting something, and he gets a bit hyper, but Dmitri is right there, and stops him. Just places a hand on him, and it's like he flips some switch, because Harry goes right back to that quiet, polite kid, no mischief in sight. Rogue took a moment to think this over. You don't think their mother, raised them in a less than kind way, do you? Rob asked quietly, casting suspicious eyes about. No, they seemed genuinely upset over her death. I don't know, maybe it was just the neighborhood they grew up in. Charlie speculated. Well, if anything, they're in good hands now, Robe pointed out. Finally returning to his donut. I guess, just wish Bella was more reasonable about the Edward situation. Then my house would be perfect. Robe laughed. No house is ever perfect. Charlie smiled at the man. No, I guess not. Bella stepped into line behind Edward to buy lunch when her boyfriend stiffened. Looking around, she didn't see anyone who could have cut themselves or something that would catch Edward's attention like that. What's wrong, Edward? Bella asked. Harry and Dmitri, the brooding vampire whispered back. As if on cue, the doors to the cafeteria opened to admit Mrs. Cope, leading Harry and Dmitri inside. The noise of the room quieted down at the sight of a child and a rather good-looking man who could give the Cullens a run for their money. Oh, here's the cafeteria, dear. I'm sure Isabella is here somewhere. Mrs. Cope's voice traveled across the room as the eyes of the other students shifted from the strangers to Bella. Bella felt her face heat up a little. Thank you, Mrs. Cope. You were truly a great help, Bella. The older vampire turned his eyes onto Bella, and Bella noted that Dimitri's voice seemed to have developed a purr. He was acting considerably warmer to her than he usually did. You forgot your lunch, and Harry here was worried you would starve, Dmitri explained. Harry nervously shuffled out from behind Dmitri and started walking towards her, his eyes on the floor the entire time. When he reached Bella, he used both hands to hold up the brown paper sack she had seen on the counter that morning. I made you a ham and cheese sandwich, applesauce, some orange slices, granola bar, and 2 juice boxes. Harry announced in his soft voice. Absently, Bella heard a few girls coo over how cute Harry was. Bella wasn't sure what to do. Her mind blanked. She hadn't wanted to eat the lunch, but now here Harry was expecting her to take it in front of her schoolmates. Do you not want it? Harry asked, his arms starting to shake as if the weight of the bag was getting to him. Take it, Swan, someone hissed from behind her. Stay out of this, Edward snapped back. So, controlling, don't know why she's with him. Bella picked out Jessica's voice from the crowd. Well, if she doesn't want it, then I would be glad to take it. Little man, Emmett's voice boomed. Looking over, Bella saw Edward's biggest brother walking over with a silly grin on his face. I bet it's delicious and I can tease Bella with how much she's missing out on your hard work. Emmett winked at Harry. Harry nodded before shuffling over to Emmett and handing him the brown sack. In the background, more females started cooing over how nice Emmett was. Emmett opened the bag and without missing a beat took a bite from the sandwich. He gave an exaggerated moan and swallowed, the most delicious sandwich I have ever eaten. And look at how big I am, I eat a lot of sandwiches. Bella could only watch as Harry gave Emmett a smile and small thank you. Well, now that's all cleared up, Harry love. It's time to go home. Thank you for all your assistance, Mrs. Cope. Dmitri drew all attention towards him. Harry scampered over to him, and Dmitri reflexively placed a hand on the back of Harry's neck. Oh, it was my pleasure, the woman giggled girlishly. Just as swift as they came, they left. When the door closed, the noise level picked up once again. This time, instead of random topics of discussion, conversations were centered on Bella, Edward, and Emmett. Todd, Emmett is so kind. Did you see what he did for the little kid? Bella just ignored the cutie. Edward is so rude. Did you hear him snap? Arms shaking and everything, and she stared. Wonder how they know Bella. Why do all the good-looking guys flock to her? I bet Emmett would make a great father one day. I would bear his children. Me too. The comments flying around the room were starting to get to Bella, no matter how hard she tried to ignore them. She couldn't imagine what Edward was going through since he could read minds. She considered just abandoning lunch and hiding out somewhere. Look, Rose, Harry made me lunch, Emmett happily cheered, as he lumbered his way back to the usual Cullen table. Rosia just gave Emmett a suffering look before she smacked him on the back of the head. Idiot, she said fondly. What? Emmett asked, confused. After that, lunch returned to normal, except the pitying glances Bella once got were replaced with small glares. They are ruining my life, Bella whispered, holding her head in her hands. We'll think of something. Edward tried to reassure her, but he wasn't feeling that confident either. Dmitri and Harry relaxed in the Swan residence, plotting their next move. It's supposed to be sunny tomorrow, Harry spoke up. We could tell Charlie that we are going to Seattle to work out your homeschooling, leave early in the morning. Dmitri suggested, we need to look into these shapeshifters the Cullens have a treaty with, Harry stated, taking out a notebook. What did Ariel learn? Harry flipped a few pages before stopping. They created a treaty that separates the werewolf and vampire lands. The Cullens are not allowed to bite or turn any humans, and neither is allowed to tell anyone about the others. Felix would love to be here. He was fascinated with the shifters when Iris first spoke of them. Demetri sighed. Marcus didn't want us to appear threatening to the Cullens. Harry frowned. I know, maybe we should send him pictures. The older vampire grinned as a sudden idea come to him. Oh, I have the perfect plan to greet the shifters tomorrow. Harry scooted over to Dmitri and listened attentively as Dmitri went over his idea. Those poor shifters. The wolves knew something was up. The Cullens and even Bella had been very tight-lipped lately, and Jacob had even voiced his amazement that Bella hadn't come knocking since she ran off to Italy. Overall, the entire thing was unsettling to the tribe, and while some voiced calling out to get answers, Sam put his foot down and said they would just let it play out. Still, it was a relief when they smelled the scent of vampires invading their lands, and most of the shapeshifters jumped at the chance to go investigate. In the end, Sam had chosen himself to go along with Jacob, Paul, and Seth. The four men shifted and instantly had their noses to the ground following the sour scent to the culprits. While they hated that fact that the vampires had invaded their land, it also allowed them a sigh of relief that something was happening and they didn't have to wait for balls of fire to rain from the sky. As the scent got stronger and their noses started to burn badly, they entered a clearing and saw the strangest sight. Two vampires were sitting on a blanket, enjoying what looked like an English afternoon tea spread. As they broke the tree line, the duo turned to face them, and the boy vampire delicately placed his teacup down on the saucer and used the napkin in his lap to gently wipe the sides of his mouth. Hello, gentlemen. It's nice to meet you. The older vampire spoke in a formal tone. The werewolves slowly stepped back into the cover of the trees and transformed into humans again. Still in a bit of a daze, the four men shucked on their shorts and stepped back into the clearing. This is the Quaaludes land and vampires are not allowed to be here. Sam growled at the bloodsuckers. A look of surprise passed both their faces as they regarded each other. Oh, we're terribly sorry about this. We did not know. We are here investigating a case about a vampire telling a human his secret. We thought this area would be a lovely place to enjoy tea while we worked through the case. We feel awful about invading your space. The smallest vampire spoke up. His voice was soft and had a strong British accent. They could see why they had a tea set, but it still didn't make sense, since vampires only consumed blood. As an apology, would you like to join us? We have all these scones and biscuits, but we couldn't possibly eat them all. The older one spoke. Jacob felt himself squirm. They were here to investigate Bella and Edward. But the truth was that Jacob had told Bella he didn't want anything to happen. The Bella because of his loose lips, but at the same time he didn't want to admit his mistake to two vampires. It felt wrong if he had to fight and kill a kid, vampire or not. We don't want cakes, we want you off our land. If you don't leave soon, then we will be forced to kill you. Sam snapped as he pushed his chest out to make himself appear larger than he already was. You're the shapeshifters, correct? The man asked. We are, Sam responded. Then would you mind if we questioned you? We just want to get all the facts before we return to the Vultury with our report. Sam looked ready to shift and brawl with the duo, but Jacob knew he needed to save this situation somehow. What do you want to ask about? Jacob spoke up, gathering the attention of the other three wolves. Oh, simple things like why you have not attacked the neighboring coven, if you know a Miss Isabella Swan, and what kind of relationship you may have with her. The young boy sat up and looked horrified. Dmitri, we have been awful. We have not introduced ourselves yet. He hastened to explain. The man suddenly looked sad. Forgive us for our bad manners. I can't believe we had forgotten such a cardinal rule. I am Demetri from the Vultury Guard, and my young companion here is Harry. We re-invite you to sit and enjoy the food with us as an apology. He apologized formally. The entire situation was surreal for the werewolves. Paul seemed to decide for everyone as he walked over to the nicely embroidered quilt the duo were sitting on and pick up a tiny sandwich. The bulky wolf sniffed the bread and green filling before he bite into it. He chewed for a few moments before swallowing and shoving the rest of the snack into his mouth. It's not bad, he spoke with a full mouth. A few crumbs fell to the blanket, and Jacob could see the boy trying hard to hide his dismay at the poor behavior. Paul, Sam scolded. Paul didn't seem to mind as he shrugged his shoulders and sat down at the edge of the blanket and picked up another sandwich. Sam, these are the most courteous vampires we have ever met, and that includes the doctor. Besides, they have food and I'm hungry. Seth let out a faint whine as he eyed the silver three-tiered tray with little cakes on it. Jacob watched as the youngest wolf quickly glanced between the cakes and Sam a few times before he caved and scampered over to the blanket to join Paul. Jacob just sighed and sat down as well. It was a losing battle since their stomachs always won in the end. When Sam finally huffed and grumbled and sat with them, the boy, Harry, took out 4 more cups and saucers from the wicker basket at his side and served them tea. The 4 native boys who could barely sit on the blanket with the vampires fumbled with the tiny cups and spoons. Jacob had tried to recall any and all lessons his father had given him when he was but a young pup, but nothing was coming. Here in America, they just poured their drinks into mugs, chugged it down, and went on their way. He didn't see the point in handling fine little cups that he could crush in one hand and little sandwiches that would never fill him. So, what do you want to ask about? Jacob promoted after he dropped the insulting doll spoon a 3rd time. He was done trying to get sugar into his tea, and just drank the infuriating thing bitter. Do you know Isabella Swan? Dmitri asked. It was clear who was the alpha in this partnership. Jacob grinned. This was something he could talk about and not get into trouble. Yeah, Bella and I are childhood friends. I actually had a crush on her, but that mind-reading stalker got her first. Jacob thought it would be wise to avoid any vampire insults. So did Isabella already know about vampires and werewolves prior to coming to live in Forks with her father last year? Dmitri asked. Jacob wasn't sure what his accent was, but it was different from Harry's British one. It still made him feel like a street rat since it was refined just like his manner of speaking. No, Jacob answered, trying to not fidget or crumble under Sam's disapproving glare. Do you know how she found out? Harry spoke up as he refilled the teacups. Seth and Paul instinctively reached for the cups and emptied them in one go. She read a book. That was the only answer Jacob could think of that would not incriminate himself. But Edward Cullen must have shown some signs to lead her to read that book and make the connection, Dmitri reasoned. All those Cullens are terrible at keeping it a secret. You would need more than 2 hands to count the number of times they used their vampire abilities in front of humans. Sam bit out. It seemed like he had enough. It doesn't matter how Bella knows, the fact remains that according to the treaty, if the Cullens turn her, then the treaty is broken and we are free to kill them, and you, if you're still around. Enough of this. Pretend bullshit, get off our reserve now. He snapped at the vampires. Dmitri, it seems, we have overstayed our welcome. Let's pack up and go home, Harry said quietly, his head bowed in submission to Sam. The action seemed to quell some of Sam's anger, but enough. The alpha stalked over to the bushes and shifted. His growling was like a lumbering truck warning the vampires to go. Jacob stood while Paul and Seth tried to stuff as many treats into their mouths before Harry's quick hands packed them away. Why do you even have all this if you can't eat it? Jacob asked. Dmitri smiled at him. Just because we drink blood doesn't mean we don't like to indulge in our old human habits. Tea time was always relaxing. Jacob nodded before he went to join Sam. As the other 2 followed him, they didn't look back, and as one they left the clearing. Harry watched the wolves go before he lifted the hem of his trousers and removed the weights that kept him grounded. Once he dropped the weights, he started hovering and grinning at his partner. When do you think the laxative will kick in? Dmitri laughed heartily, probably about halfway to their houses. Should make an interesting run for them, he winked. Not wanting to be around for the fallout. Harry and Dmitri grabbed their basket and took off, mentally laughing at the shifters the entire way. They may have faked old British manners, but that didn't mean they could be trusted. It was interesting to see how they caved in the presence of food. Charlie had just gotten home from work and started getting ready for an evening with his old buddy Billy Black. They were going to enjoy a few drinks and watch a game or other. He always enjoyed his time with this old friend and had been looking forward to the evening all day. Only as he reached his bedroom, the phone rang. Walking into his room, he picked up the phone on his bedside table and frowned at the name Billy Black. "Billy, I was just getting ready to head over." Charlie answered the phone. "Hey, Charlie. I hate to do this, but I don't think it's a good night. The boys ate something and now they're all locked into bathrooms moaning something horrible," Billy explained. Charlie frowned some more. "Do you think it's food poisoning from the dinner or something?" The health inspector hadn't been around lately, and this could cause a terrible headache if the station was phoned with complaints. "No, you know, boys. I bet they tried cooking something to give Emily a break, and then because of pride they ate whatever disgusting concoction they made, and it gave them the runs." Charlie let out a chuckle. "Yes, I could see that. Anyways, the house smells terrible, and Jake's whining could make your ears bleed. Can we reschedule till tomorrow?" Billy asked. "Sure, buddy. Just make sure Jacob is okay. I might send Bella over later with soup for you to eat, and air freshener. Then she can finally leave the house," Charlie joked. Billy's deep laugh echoed through the phone, giving her some leash, only for it to lead to punishment. "You are a cruel man, Charlie Swan." Billy retorted, "What can I say? I think I'm finally getting the hang of this parenting thing." Suddenly, a long and sad howl cut through the conversation. Billy coughed. "Right, should go and torment my own kid while he's stuck on the toilet, unable to move. Call you tomorrow. Till then." Charlie hung up and sighed. Now, what was he supposed to do? Just as he asked himself that, it seemed like God was taking care of him. Charlie walked to his door, close it, only to see Harry walking out of his and Dimitri's bedroom carrying Monopoly with a bowl of chips on top. "Charlie, would you like to join Dmitri and I in a game?" Charlie didn't fight the smile that stole across his face. "Sure, kid. Just let me change and grab a few beers." Harry grinned and eagerly nodded before he started running towards the stairs. As he was passing Charlie, he tripped over the hallway carpet, and Charlie shot out a hand to stop the boy from falling. As his hand held Harry up, he noticed that the boy's skin felt cold. "Harry, you seem cold. Why don't I hold this stuff and you go put on a sweater?" Charlie suggested, worried about the boy. "Thank you, sir." Harry handed over the game and food before he dashed back into his room. Charlie grinned. He may have been joking to Billy about finally learning how to be a parent, but in that moment, he felt like such a father telling his son to dress warmer. Harry and Dmitri were good to have around. They certainly brightened up lonely evenings. When Harry reappeared, he was wearing one of Dimitri's old college sweaters, and the hem was barely missing the ground. "Here, kid, now careful. Going down the stairs, and I will be there soon." Harry took the load and slowly walked to the stairs. Charlie turned and went into his room, Billy and Jacob completely forgotten. The neighborhood around Charlie Swan's house was a quiet, peaceful area. They didn't have drag races, bickering couples, rowdy teenagers, or residents that liked to make large, gaudy holiday displays. It was a nice area, it was comfortable, and all the residents would have preferred that it stayed that way, but it wasn't to be. One Saturday afternoon, a dirty truck pulled up into the chief's driveway, carrying 2 passengers. That was just the start. Billy Black finally got to see his old friend, as he was loaded into his wheelchair by his son. They had missed their last get-together, but this time Jacob didn't eat anything funny and was perfectly able to drive his old man over to the Swan residence and join the men in an afternoon of football and manly gossip. Not the girly gossip about celebrity affairs, the neighbors, and the mostly nude photos of male models in magazines. No, they talked about sports, athletes, the news, and what crazy shenanigans their children get up to, though Billy sometimes never knew who got the better deal for a child. He had a werewolf for a son, but Charlie had a dim daughter that insisted on dating a vampire. "Billy!" Charlie cheered as he opened the front door and welcomed both Blacks in. "It was only last week, but it feels like it's been ages," Charlie tacked on. Billy laughed. "Well, you have this idiot to blame. Eat something funny and was crying for me all night." Charlie tried to frown, but all he accomplished was the corners of his mustache slightly turned down, while his eyes crinkled in amusement. "I'm sure he didn't mean to," said Charlie. "Probably not. but I always told him not to eat things off the ground. Billy and Charlie laughed together and entered the living room. Charlie already had 3 pizzas waiting and a few cold beers. A big bowl of chips was sitting beside a carton of juice, and Charlie had set out 3 cups. The beer is for us, but the juice is for the boys. I'll just call them down now, Charlie said. The chief walked to the bottom of the stairs and yelled up. A responding yell came, and Charlie smiled as he ambled his way back into the room. They're good boys, but they never learned the fine sport of football. When I finished mentioning watching a game, they started talking about soccer. Nothing against their mother, but a boy should really be raised knowing the difference between sports, Charlie preached. Billy laughed again and cracked his beer. He felt at home sitting with his friend like this. Jacob, on the other hand, was looking around and sniffing the air. Charlie, why does your house smell different? Jacob asked. There was something on the edge of his mind trying to tell him what the scent was, but he couldn't quite grasp it.
Smell?
Oh well, Harry was complaining that it smelled a bit round here, so Dmitri went out and bought a few air fresheners. Those plug-in ones, you know. Well, anyways, the boy comes back with a large bag filled to the top, and the 2 went crazy plugging them in everywhere. I got 2 in my room. One is wild lavender, and another is fresh rain or something, Charlie explained. Boys buying air fresheners? Billy chuckled. If I didn't know better, I would think you were housing some shirt lifters up there, Billy joked. A growl broke from Jacob's throat before an accented voice spoke up. I'm sorry, sir, but I take offense to what you're implying about myself and my little brother. Billy and Charlie turned to see an annoyed-looking Dmitri standing at the doorway, while a bemused Harry hid behind his legs. You! Jacob roared before he was jumping from his seat and flying towards the older boy. Whoa! Charlie yelled as he caught Jacob around his waist and pulled. The teenager was too big and too heavy for Charlie, and they were both carried across the room. Dmitri calmly sidestepped the attack and looked down his nose at the black boy when he landed on the ground. Don't trust those leeches, Jacob yelled as he scrambled to his knees and tried to lunge at Dmitri again. The older Vultury member had skillfully moved himself and Harry around the room and beside the TV and open window. Jacob missed, but that didn't stop the teenager from trying to lunge at Dmitri again. 3 things happened at once. Charlie, getting fed up with not knowing the situation, had bellowed, "What the devil is going on here?" as Jacob tried to lunge forward again, but missed and nearly avoided crushing the table. That happened at the same time as Bella, Edward, and Alice burst through the front door looking worried and frantic. There was silence as no one moved. Finally, Charlie gave his daughter a confused look and went with the most pressing issue in his mind, bells. "What are you doing outside?" he asked. Bella had the decency to stutter, and as her face flushed and she looked in every direction except at her father, she seemed completely at loss as to what to say. "You're grounded and are supposed to be in your room working on your school assignments," Charlie announced. His eyes moved from Bella and landed on the Cullen children. "And I thought I said I didn't want you here," he growled. His growl wasn't as intimidating as Jacob's, but for a human it wasn't half bad. Bella tried again. She snuck out her window with a rope ladder. A small voice piped up. All eyes traveled to Harry as he peeked out from behind Dmitri. "You can see it swinging from her window right now," he added, when he was finished delivering his news, and he ducked back behind his brother once more. What? That's not true. I did not sneak you out on a rope ladder," Bella protested. She didn't even own a rope ladder. Charlie glared. I will go check your room now," Charlie announced. The chief stood up straight and marched up the stairs. The group could hear his footsteps down the hallway and then in Bella's doorway. Next, they paused inside the room before they turned around and come back down. In his hands, he carried a shoddy-looking rope made from Bella's floral sheet set. "Care to explain this, Isabella?" Charlie asked in a low voice. "I did not make that," the girl argued. "I bet Harry and Dmitri made it and planted it there just to get me in trouble." "And Harry said rope ladder? That's not a rope ladder?" Harry shuffled out again and sniffed. "That's a rope ladder, right, Dmitri? The princes in fairy tales use them to save princesses." The older brother smiled fondly at the little boy as he spoke. "That is a form of a rope ladder. Yes, although I don't think a prince was saving a princess today." "Oh, don't try the cute act. You totally did this," Bella protested. "Be realistic, Bella. You tried sneaking out again, didn't you?" "Is grounding you no longer enough?" Charlie asked. He didn't seem to want to wait for an answer as he turned towards Jacob, who was still kneeling. He could deal with his daughter later, but now that he remembered that Harry and Dmitri were there was a whole new issue to address. "And you, Jacob Black, what are you doing attacking my nephews?" Jacob sat up straighter and grumbled. "They were the ones they fed me the food that made me—" The teenager blushed at this and squirmed at unpleasant memories. "Sick." Charlie sent an inquiring look towards Dmitri. The older vampire frowned in concern before he had a small epiphany. It must have been the Devonshire cream. It doesn't agree with everyone, and since it's an unfamiliar treat, your bodies must not have reacted well. Harry and I are terribly sorry," Dmitri said with sincerity dripping from his voice. Harry peeked out again, and the little vamp had tear tracks on his face, and 2 new teardrops slowly falling. "We're sorry," Harry's wobbly voice carried across the room. Charlie's eyes softened at the sight as Dmitri instantly crouched down to wipe the tears away. The older brother started cooing at the little boy, and soon they seemed to be lost in their own little world, or soft hugs and cuddles. It always warmed Charlie's heart then he saw Dmitri dote on Harry so much. It was a nice reminder that there were still siblings out there that were close, and still loved each other immensely through tough times. Charlie thought it was absolutely adorable, and the tender look on Billy's face he agreed. "Well now, that's all settled." Charlie shot Jacob a pointed look, and the teenager grumbled, but eventually turned his hostile glare off of the brother duo. "We are all going to sit down, turn on the game, eat pizza, and cheer for the damn Redskins," Charlie declared. Billy set up a cheer, Redskins all the way, and grabbed his beer again. After a few drinks, he sighed and turned towards the older brother. "Dmitri, I didn't mean my comment earlier. Just all boys talk. We don't think things through properly, and often end up with a muddy work boot stuck in our mouth." Dmitri looked at the older man and smiled. "It's fine, sir. I wasn't offended, but I was slightly angered that you would talk about Harry like that. I apologize and hope we can put it past us." Billy responded. "Yes, Mr. Black," Dmitri said. "None of that Mr. stuff. Call me Billy," Billy said as he shuffled to get more comfortable in his chair. "Mr. makes me feel older than I like to think I am." The older vampire chuckled. "Of course, Billy." Charlie nodded happy with the outcome and started walking towards the couch again. He took 2 steps before he stopped and turned around to address the trio they door. "This is a boys' night, so I suggest you to get going." Charlie directed 2 pointed looks at the Cullen children. Bella stood a little straighter. "Well, why doesn't Edward join you? I'm sure you can finally get to know him." "Charlie," the girl suggested. Charlie stared his daughter straight in the eye. "I said it was a boys' night, Bella. Besides, I know all I need to know about Edward, and I don't think I like any of it. Now good night, Alice, Edward, but I would like you to leave my home and never come round here again. You are both bad influences on my daughter." The chief was firm in his words, and everyone could hear the finality in them. "Charlie," Bella protested. "Nope. To your room, Bella. Take your rope and remake your bed. The next commercial break I am coming up there, and you better be studying." Charlie waited until Bella gave up, and angrily stomped up the stairs. The 2 Cullen children snuck out, and soon all the boys had settled around the living room. Once the TV was on, Jacob became completely absorbed in the game and pizza that the faint wisp of vampire smell didn't affect him. Billy was cheering along, and Harry kept crying out, "Foul! Handball!" Dmitri kept yelling at the TV, "Don't dive to the middle. That never works." Charlie was avidly trying to explain the rules of American football to the boys, but it wasn't going well when Harry kept asking for a red card between his cries of fouls. Overall, Charlie thought it was a good evening, despite how it started. The Swan residence was enjoying a nice, quiet breakfast together. Bella was eating her cereal while she glared at the Vultury members. Charlie was drinking his coffee as he read the newspaper, and Dmitri and Harry, they were busy trying to write a letter. Charlie only needed to know that they were writing to Dimitri's childhood pen pal, Felix, in Rome. If it were Bella, he would have asked more questions and been concerned about the letter's contents, but he trusted the boys. They were good boys. "How is Harry's schooling going?" Charlie asked. It had been on his mind lately, and while he knew that Dmitri was homeschooling Harry currently, Charlie thought it was important for children to interact with their peers and hoped that the older brother would reconsider putting Harry into a classroom. "It's going well. I need to pick up some more books for his lessons soon, but overall, he's a grade or 2 higher than the other children his age." Dmitri studied Charlie for a moment. "If you are serious about enrolling him, then Harry can do an aptitude test and be placed in the proper grade," Dmitri suggested. Charlie nodded and tried to ignore the concerned look on the older boy's face. It was for the best that Harry make friends his own age. I'll let you set that all up, unless you need help, Charlie offered. Dmitri smiled at him. I should be fine, but maybe there's a gifted school nearby that Harry can enroll in. He's a smart boy, and I don't want him bullied for being a nerd. Harry was ignoring them, happily riding away to Felix. Probably for the best. They're expensive, though. I know the one in Seattle costs a pretty penny, Charlie advised. Dmitri nodded and developed a contemplating look. Bella seemed to have had enough and slammed her spoon down on the counter. This is ridiculous, she moaned. I am stuck inside all day when I'm not at school. You took away my phone and I only get an hour a day on the internet. I can't even watch television because Harry insists on watching Barbie movies all day. He's a boy. Charlie frowned at his daughter. Bella, you shouldn't judge. I watched a few with Harry. They really promote proper morals, and the songs are catchy. They even have a Three Musketeers one. Bella groaned. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry for running out and going to Italy. I'm sorry for constantly trying to sneak out and for being rude to Harry and Dmitri. I'm sorry for letting my grades slack, and I'm sorry that you don't like or approve of Edward. Charlie, I'm sorry, and I just can't take this anymore, Bella ranted. It seemed she finally reached the end of her rope and was desperate. If I promise to try better in school and to be better behaved, can I just go outside for an hour or two? Bella begged. For the first time in weeks, Charlie actually smiled at his daughter. Bells, all I wanted was for you to apologize and make responsible choices. I know I have been more of a warden than a father lately, but you are refusing to see what you did wrong. That statement seemed to stun the girl. All I had to do was apologize, she asked slowly. I know it seems simple, but running off like that, and the general lack of respect you had towards my rules, was very hurtful. I know you may be suffering from the disease of young love now, but that doesn't mean you should forget your family. Family is important, Charlie told his daughter. Just look at Harry and Dmitri. I have never seen two brothers more close. They understand the importance of family, and I hoped you would see that and learn from it. Learn family values from them, Bella gaped. Dmitri winked at her, while Harry smirked. Charlie missed the exchange since he was focused on his daughter. Now, you're still grounded, but I think you deserve a reward for apologizing. Harry needs some new pajamas. Charlie sent a look towards Dmitri. So why don't you and Harry drive to Port Angeles together and do some shopping? Bella watched as Dmitri lowered his mouth closer to Harry's ear and whispered something silently. The little vamp nodded along before sighing and getting to his feet. Demi made me promise to be on my best behavior. Harry spoke up in his usual soft tone. Charlie grinned. See, it will be a good chance for you two to bond. Bella was torn. Should she go and finally see the outside world, or stay in and suffer in the suffocating atmosphere of her house? In the end, the need to get out had won over, and Bella agreed to take Harry shopping. She didn't think he needed it, but she would humor her father for a chance to leave the house. Good, I'll just grab some money from my wallet for Harry's needs and the truck's gas, Charlie announced. Nonsense, Charlie. I still have some money to pay for Harry's clothes. Dmitri argued. Charlie held up a hand to halt the argument. I promised to take care of you too, and I will pay for Harry's new clothes. It's the least I can do. Dmitri looked like he wanted to argue, but he held himself back. Fine, but I will pay for dinner tonight. Dmitri threw out quickly before he scooped Harry up and carried him out of the kitchen. Charlie chuckled at the young man's words and shook his head. You really could learn a lot from them if you just gave them a chance. Bells. Charlie told his daughter. That ended the conversation, and the chief went off to find his wallet and Bella's truck keys. Bella frowned. She highly doubted that. Alice Cullen was lying on her bed doing nothing when she was hit with a vision. It was what she was waiting for. When Edward had come to her and asked her to be on constant watch of Bella's activities, she had been hesitant at first. It seemed like another one of Edward's more obsessive character traits, but when her brother started pleading with her, she caved and agreed. Now was his chance to finally act on his plan. Alice grinned as she heard Edward's quiet cheer from his room. He had seen the vision in her head, and now he was preparing himself to go to Port Angeles and meet Bella. The drive to Port Angeles wasn't as bad as Bella thought it would be. Harry was quiet and merely sat in his seat without saying a thing. When they got to the shopping mall, Harry had climbed out of the truck and waited for her at the side. It was scaring Bella a little about how docile the little vampire was being, but she wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth. Together they walked into the mall, and Bella walked towards the mall's directory. Looking at how small Harry was, she looked for the children's stores. "Do you have a preference for any type of clothing?" she asked. Harry merely shrugged his shoulders and kept his mouth shut. Seeing she wasn't going to get much out of him, Bella led them to the closest store. If they could get Harry's clothes out of the way, then she would have some time to stop by the bookstore. Amanda Ashley had published a book that had caught Bella's eye. It was a story about love between a vampire and a woman named Annalisa. When Bella had read the description, she felt like Amanda Ashley could have been writing about her and Edward in Midnight Embrace. As Bella got lost in her thoughts, her feet carried her forward on their own until she walked into a cold, hard chest. It felt like two steel bands wrapped around her as she looked up into Edward's warm amber eyes. "Edward," she whispered softly, barely able to comprehend how he was there with her. It was like a scene from one of Amanda Ashley's books, and Bella had a fleeting thought that romance novels do come true. "Bella," Edward's voice was so loving that to her the world faded away, and it was just the two of them embracing in a place of peace and love. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Seeing you," was his simple response. He had yet to let her go or look away. "How?" The time for full complete sentences was gone. "Alice missed you," she whined. "Me too." Together they just stood around, embracing, soaking the other in. Bella was happy. She was out of the house and with Edward, the love of her life. Nothing could ruin this moment for her, except a childish scream pierced through the air from right beside them. Looking down, Harry had somehow developed tears again, and his face was screwed up in pain. A couple nearby rushed over, and the woman bent down to Harry's height and tried to soothe him. "What's wrong, dear?" she asked. Harry shook his head and tried turning away, but the woman wrapped him in her arms. "It's all right, dear, just tell me what's wrong." Harry hiccuped a few more times before she stuttered out an answer. "Oh, I miss Demi." The woman cooed a few more times. "And who is Demi, dear?" Edward stepped forward and coughed. "He's just trying to get attention. Does things like this all the time." Edward tried explaining. The woman glared at him. "Are you Demi?" the man asked. He was frowning and carefully studying Edward. "Ace, he's not my Demi," Harry spoke up. Instantly, the man and woman's attention were back on Harry. "Where is Demi? Do you have a way to contact him?" the woman asked in a soothing voice. "I have his number." Harry trailed off. The man knelt down this time and held up his cell. "Here, buddy, tell me his number and I'll call him for you." The little vampire nodded and very slowly said each number of Dimitri's number. The man nodded, dialed, and held the phone up to his ear. Bella couldn't believe this. It was all going so well, but now an overprotective Vultury member was going to show up and ruin the day. She could see the old vampire twist this tale to Charlie so she would get even more punishment. "That's really not necessary. I'm his cousin, and I can take care of him from here." Bella reached out to take Harry from the woman, but the blood-curdling scream that resulted had her instantly dropping her hands. The scream seemed to have shocked everyone as they stared at Harry. The little vampire was clutching the woman closely and had his eyes screwed shut. Clearly he didn't want to go with Bella. "Hello?" Dmitri, familiar accented voice, sounded from the phone, and the man sheepishly raised it to his ear again. "Hi, sorry about that. Are you Demi?" the man asked. The man nodded slightly. "Ah, Demetri. Unusual name. I'm Richard. My wife and I were walking by when this adorable little kid screamed while trying to calm him. He asked for you." Bella sighed. This would not end well. "Right. Well, we're at the mall now." "Uh-huh." The man looked at Bella and then smirked a little. "Well, that is one way to describe her. Well, we can watch him until you arrive. It wouldn't be a bother." "Oh no, don't worry. Understandable. Okay. Bye, Dmitri." The man ended the call and knelt back down. "Dmitri said your name is Harry. Well, Harry, Demi is on his way and will be here soon. Until then, do you want to go get something to eat?" He's really coming?" Harry asked. "Sure is, buddy." Harry brightened up a little and gave a small smile to the couple. "Can we get hot chocolate?" The woman beamed at the kitty vamp. "Of course, dear." Even though it was approaching summer and no one drank hot chocolate this time of year, the couple didn't seem to mind the odd request. "We'll take it from here," the man told Bella and Edward. He didn't seem too impressed with them. Bella wasn't sure what to say. All she could do was watch as Harry walked away with the nice couple and out of sight behind two oddly dressed males. Was he planning to eat them, or was this just a scheme to get out of buying pajamas? Bella wasn't sure, but it gave her a chance to be alone with Edward. Edward, what just happened? Edward couldn't answer because he seemed just as dumbfounded as she was. Bella was cautious. She had spent the remainder of the day with Edward, and together they enjoyed themselves wandering around the town and just talking. She knew she would probably get in trouble when she arrived home, but to her it was worth it to have spent time alone with Edward. When she reached her front door, she steeled herself and walked inside. The house was quiet, but she refused to let that lull her into a false sense of security. She knew they were here. Edward had told her so. The only question was, where were they hiding? A giggle sounded from her right, and Bella whipped to the right to peer into the dining room. She didn't see anything. Taking a careful step forward, Bella turned quickly to the left and stared into the living room. Still, she didn't see anything. Another step, and this time the giggling was above her. Bella searched the ceiling frantically, but she still couldn't see Harry. She knew it was him. Who else sounded so young and could float? "Stop this," she demanded. A giggle sounded from behind her, and Bella had enough. She dashed upstairs and to her room. Only just before she reached her door, she was blocked by a tall, looming figure. "Isabella! Isabella! Isabella!" Dmitri taxed. "Can't even keep an eye on a child." His voice was cold and chiding. "I'm not to blame," the brunette yelled. "I was talking with Edward and suddenly he started screaming for no reason. Then he left with two strangers. What was I supposed to do?" Demetri smirked. "You know, if you can't even keep watch of a well-behaved child like Harry, I would hate to see how your future children will turn out." Bella glared. "Well, tried to glare anyways. I won't have that problem. Edward is going to turn me, and everyone knows vampires can't have babies." "Vampires? I don't know what you're talking about, Miss Swan, but we should be happy that your father isn't around to hear such talk from you. He might consider getting you institutionalized for such languid ideals." "Huh?" Bella asked. Dmitri sighed. Maybe languid was the wrong word. Simple? Dim? I'm sure we can find a better word for your uncreative and single-mindedness. English, it's not as beautiful or poetic as others. "Deme," a soft voice sounded from behind Bella. The pale girl turned and spotted the child vampire standing behind her, looking bored as he stared up at her. "Charlie is at the corner," he announced. "Right, we should move this conversation forward. Isabella, we won't tell your father that you abandoned a child at the mall for a clandestine meeting with Edward. If you do two little things," Dmitri proposed. Bella stared at him blankly. "Well, I'll just take that as a yes. First, you will sneak the money Charlie gave you today back into his wallet." Bella frowned. "Why?" Harry explained this time. "Because he is a good man, and he shouldn't waste his hard-earned money needlessly. Second," Dmitri brought the attention back to himself, "I need to go to Seattle for a small business trip. Charlie has been worried about Harry's lack of contact with other people. And I think, to settle his mind, we need to stage an incident where Harry gets to meet more people. While I'm away, I would like for you to convince the Cullens to babysit Harry." Bella stared between both Vultury members and didn't know what to say. Finally, she addressed the first issue. "But I already spent the money Charlie gave me on my date with Edward." Oh, Harry took a deep breath, and just as the sound of the front door opened, he let out a loud, keening wail. Dmitri was instantly by his side, cooing at him and pretending to console the child. Charlie's heavy boots pounded up the stairs, and Dmitri glared at Bella. "I can't believe you. You left him all alone in the crowed mall by himself? If that nice couple hadn't found him and called me, I don't know what could have happened to Harry. You may not like him, but isn't it a bit too cruel to just leave him Why, Bella stammered. "What happened?" Charlie frantically asked as he stopped before the group. "What's this I hear about Harry being lost?" Dmitri gathered Harry into his arms and lifted the boy up. "I got a call from a couple that said they found Harry alone at the mall. When I arrived to pick him up, I calmed him down, and he told me that when he and Bella arrived there, Edward was waiting. He pushed Harry to the ground in an attempt to get to Bella, and then the two just left him. He was fine until Bella got home, and when I asked her why she would do something like that, she said that she wanted to spend the money you gave her on her date with Edward. Saying that some money was more important than Harry's safety set him off again." Bella sputtered. "Gee, that's not true at all," she screamed. "Edward met me, and we hugged. He never touched Harry. Then when I tried to stop Harry calling Dmitri, he walked away with those strangers. To Charlie, it looked like Harry was silently crying into Dimitri's shoulders because his shoulders were shaking. But to Bella, she could see the little fiend giving her an evil little grin and silently laughing. So you admit you met Edward and left Harry on his own with strangers. You didn't even try to find him. The tips of Charlie's mustache started trembling with the anger he suppressed. I know there are two sides to every story, but in this case, neither is good. I am sorely disappointed in you, Bella. I had thought you were maturing this morning, but apparently that was just false hope on my part. From the sounds of it, we should be fortunate that Harry was found by such a good couple. What if they didn't get to him first, and he was kidnapped? Bella pouted. I bet he would have been fine if he were kidnapped, she stated without thinking. Dmitri let out an appalled gasp as he moved further away from Bella. She quickly realized her mistake and tried to cover it up. I think Harry could defend himself if someone tried to take him. Charlie shook his head. He is a child. He shouldn't have to defend himself. The point is, you left a large opportunity for someone to take him, and you aren't even remorseful. I don't know what to do with you anymore. Isabella, I think I need to call your mother. Bella stared at her father in fear. What? Why? She whined. Bells? Charlie started. I think I'm to blame, Dmitri cut in. Father and daughter both stared at him in bemusement. What do you mean? Charlie asked. Well, it's just, I knew she is an only child, and has never had to take care of kid before. I should have known it would be too much responsibility to take him to the mall on her first time. I should have insisted I chaperone even from a distance, Dmitri explained in a very self-sacrificing tone. I think we should give her another shot, but this time have someone nearby. Charlie stared at the young man and smiled. You are just too kind-hearted for your own good. The officer said with a chuckle. Maybe you're right. Bella will still need some punishment for losing Harry today, but we can give her another chance to babysit him. Dmitri smiled at the chief. Actually, I had an idea for that already. I need to go to Seattle to check out this gifted school, and I was thinking of leaving Harry with one of the Cullens to watch him. We could have Bella tag along and observe how to properly watch a child. Charlie frowned. The Cullens, not Edward. Dmitri was quick to point out. I don't trust him near Harry, but I do remember the one son. Oh, what was his name? Dmitri took a moment to think. Emmett? Yes, the very big one. Emmett, Charlie agreed with the description. Him. He was very kind to Harry before, and I thought maybe we could ask him. Bella could watch how he treats and plays with Harry, and hopefully that will prevent another situation like today's from occurring. Charlie nodded along. I never had a problem with him. Every time we've met, he had always left a favorable impression on me, unlike some boys. Here he sent a meaningful glance towards Bella, just in case she didn't know he was talking about Edward. I will call the good doctor now and ask if his son wouldn't mind watching our little one here. When will you be going? Tomorrow, Dmitri answered. I'll go call now, and while I'm gone, I'll think of a new punishment for Bella. Charlie walked back downstairs as he argued with himself as to whether make Bella volunteer at the morgue or work on filing at the police station. Bella turned on the blood-sucking duo. Why did you do that? I thought we had a deal, she whispered harshly. You spent the money. Harry answered casually in his soft voice as he slowly stretched out of the ball he had formed against Dimitri's chest. If you hadn't spent the money, we would have handled that in a more civil way. Dmitri grinned. Maybe this experience will teach you to not be so greedy. Bella stomped her foot and then angrily walked into her room and slammed the door. The event caused Harry to frown. She makes it seem like her life is so hard. When she acts like that, so much unnecessary angst, he commented. Yes, you would think being a human teenage girl would be easier than being a centuries-old vampire. Honestly, no consideration for us and what we go through every day just to torment her. Dmitri pouted. I would suggest we teach her compassion, but if she is turned, then it would probably backfire on us, Harry added. Even if she turned out with a Jane-like personality, that mind-reader boyfriend of hers would never let her go to Volturi. Harry giggled. Could you imagine Bella and Jane having a battle of words? Dmitri gave his little partner an amused look. I don't think it would be very entertaining. Jane would use biting wit, while Bella would stare back blankly. Soon Jane would get fed up with her opponent's lack of response and storm out. Harry frowned. Then that would mean Bella would win, right? Since Jane left first, Dmitri chuckled. I don't think it would count, because Bella wouldn't utter a single word. You can't win a word battle without saying something. Harry smiled again. Well, as long as Bella doesn't win, I would hate to see Jane's winning streak broken. Marcus still whines when it's mentioned. Dmitri chuckled and carried Harry to their room. He held the record for 600 years before Jane came along. Even then, she only wins because Alex stands behind her and helps her cheat, Dmitri explained. Maybe next time you should start off with a joke, Harry explained. A joke? A joke? Why a joke? Everyone goes straight for insults, but maybe telling a joke could throw your opponent's balance off, Harry explained. No one let him enter the word battles, but he enjoyed watching them. Unless someone started insulting Dmitri, then he got upset. In turn, if anyone thought to use Harry against Dmitri, rules were forgotten, and Dmitri would be disqualified for drawing blood. What kind of joke? Dmitri asked. Harry took a moment before he grinned. How would a vampire manage with one fang?